All right, everybody, we have a few minutes after, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So hello and good afternoon to everyone. My name is John Dodds, and I'm the President and Chief Operating Officer of Kencor, which is an American elevator group company. I'm also the chair of the NAEC Member Services Committee, and I want to welcome everyone to this second quarter town hall discussion in what has become a series of dialogues with various leaders within the vertical transportation industry. These conversations have focused on topics that have been identified by NAEC members as important and significant ones for their businesses. The topics for the town hall sessions have been assembled from various sources, and the topics range from immediate needs that you face daily to the longer term objectives relating to successfully sustaining your businesses. I'd like to thank Sean Madden for his continued help and support with the Town Hall Series initiative, and of course, Trip Cook with NAEC for all his assistance as well. As always, the NAEC Member Services Committee is eagerly looking for feedback on this series of events. So if you have any feedback in general, or if you have ideas about topics for future town hall events, please reach out to trip at naec.org. Today's topic is about managing sales teams, and this event will last for an hour and a half, ending at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. Today's panelists will discuss how we can best manage the internal and external customer-facing part of our organizations, the sales team. Strong sales teams emerge from company environments that are transparent and oriented on key sales metrics. When you put the right people together in a supportive environment, it drives the entire organization up and to the right. Every organization has a pool of change agents that usually goes untapped. If you align your organization's higher purpose with an intersection of your business's interests and decision-making, people will try new things and make surprising contributions. Our panelists today will discuss how to bring in the right people with drive and determination while creating an environment that is encouraging, transparent, and oriented around key sales metrics. Before I introduce our panelists, I would like to provide a few updates on important NAEC activities. Registration opened yesterday for our annual convention and exposition to be held in the city of Louisville, Kentucky this fall. The event will be held September 18th through 21st at the Kentucky International Convention Center. We currently have 129 exhibitors, and complimentary passes to the expo are available for exhibitors to share with their customer base. A full agenda of presentations, panels, and extracurricular events is being planned. There are sponsorship opportunities still available, and for anyone interested in sponsoring, please visit the Become a Sponsor page at naecconvention.com. NAEC is currently accepting nominations for 2 annual awards, the William C. Sturgeon Distinguished Service Award and the Contractor's Choice of the Year Award. The Sturgeon Award is presented annually to the individual who most merits the elevator industry's recognition as an individual who has given unselfishly of his or her time and energies to the benefit of the association and the industry as a whole. The Contractor's Choice of the Year Award recognizes one extraordinary supplier member on their commitment to customers and other partners. Please give these awards serious attention and supply NAEC with candidates who you think meets the recipient qualifications. The winner for both awards will be announced at the 2022 NAEC Convention and Expo in Louisville, Kentucky. The deadline for submissions for both awards is June 3rd, and you can email your completed nominations to danielle@naec.org. Lastly, the NAEC office has recently moved a short distance away from the location that had housed our headquarters for decades. The new location is a great step in the continuing development of the association. All the emails and telephone numbers for the association remain unchanged, but please take a moment and note the new address for your records. With those organization items out of the way, we'll move forward with today's town hall event. We will be going through our panel individually in roughly 15-minute segments. And when all of the panelists have had a chance to speak, we'll ask some questions from the audience attendees. As you have questions, please write them in the Q&A window, and we will circle back to as many of them as time allows at the end. Please note with each question asked, whether it is a question that is specific for one panelist, or if it's a general question for the entire panel. As always, we will try to be mindful of everyone's time today and wrap up no later than 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. I would like to start by introducing the first member of our panel, Eric Lazear with American Elevator Group. Eric began his career with US Elevator, which was later acquired by TKE. Eric began with US Elevator in 1979 as a sales trainee. Over time, he worked his way up to becoming the district manager of their Northern California operation, the company's largest and most profitable. In 1989, Eric joined Amtech Elevator. By 1996, Eric became Amtech's Senior Vice President of Operations, and in 1997, he became the company's president and CEO. In 2003, Eric helped orchestrate the sale of Amtech to the Otis Elevator Company. At that time, this was the largest acquisition ever in the USA-based elevator industry. Eric stayed with Otis through 2009, and in 2010, Eric joined Draka Elevator Products as their Americas Director, overseeing all sales and distribution activities throughout North and South America. In 2018, Eric joined GAL Manufacturing, later Vantage Elevation, where he led the commercial efforts in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic regions and served as a key account executive to the multinational elevator companies. In 2022, Eric left GAL Vantage, announcing his retirement. In what may be the shortest retirement in the industry's history, what was that, Eric? About a week?
A weekend.
You know, I guess you can't keep a good elevator man down, or, you know, this industry just has a way of pulling you back in. Eric subsequently joined American Elevator Group in January of this year as their VP of Business Development. In this role, Eric is responsible for sales and business development programs throughout the AEG network. Eric, it's great to see you as always, and thanks for taking the time to join our panel today, and I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, John. I'm going to share my screen as a starter, and hopefully that'll work. And there we go. So I want to thank the NAEC and Fripp and Sean, John, for inviting me to be a panelist. John, it was a great introduction. Thank you. As the introduction indicates, I've had the good fortune to be in this industry for 4 decades and to work in almost every aspect of this industry, the contractor side, supplier side, distribution, operations, sales, management, branch manager, estimator. I even ran a factory in Mexico for a few years. And but throughout my, the reason I'm excited about this opportunity is throughout my career, which has mostly been in management and senior management, knock on wood, I've always believed that, everything starts with the sale. The sales team is the tip of the spear. I think we all use that expression. And so the chance to talk about managing sales teams when presented to me, when I was presented the opportunity to be a panelist, along with the other distinguished gentlemen, I jumped on it. Last, I want to thank all of the participants out there. I can't see you, but I can see there's a number of you out there. We're all blessed to be in a very unique industry where, we compete head to head. We see each other on walkthroughs. We compete, whether it's for product, whether it's a machine or a controller, or it's a service contract or a mod contract or a new construction contract. We compete head to head, and, we can just get after each other. But at the end of the day, we have associations like the NAEC that brings us all back together as friends and colleagues. And, I have a lot of personal friends and relatives, and I don't know anybody that's in a business as unique as this one, where your competitors are also your allies and your friends. So I want to thank everybody for being such an important part of the industry, and, and for being friends and colleagues for 4 decades. I'm sure I know a lot of people on the phone. So I am going to start my presentation. I have two favorite sayings at work, and those of you that have worked with me in the past, I'm sure you've heard me say it over and over. One is to keep a relentless focus on results. Two, what gets measured gets done. So kind of the theme of my presentation, and really the theme of my life in the elevator business, and maybe because I was an accounting major for 3 years and quit that because I didn't like whatever tax accounting or something like that, and ended up graduating in marketing. But my accounting background really is probably the most important part of my education that carried over to my career. And so I tend to be a numbers person. I think people that know me say, oh, you're a people guy, you're a good salesman, blah, blah. But to me, everything starts with the numbers. And I like to manage through the numbers, understanding what my numbers are, what the operations department numbers are, what each salesperson's numbers are. So I'm going to kind of focus on, my two favorite topics, relentlessly focusing on the results we all want to achieve, and measuring those results, because what gets measured gets done. If you don't measure something, it probably isn't going to happen. I think everybody on this call, or most everyone on this call, has been to enough webinars, knows what SMART goals are. And before we even talk about the SMART goals, everyone in the sales function needs to know what's expected of them and have a plan to not only meet their goals, but to also exceed them. And it was interesting, and John Dodds knows the story. I came to AEG January of this year. Budgets were already set for the year, so I was not involved in setting the bookings goals and the sales goals for the company, but I was asked to drive them and to make sure that we do meet and hopefully exceed them. And so I was surprised. So I had to call all of our business unit leaders and the sales managers and the salespeople. My first question is, what are you going to do this year in terms of mod bookings, in terms of service sales, unit gain, in terms of repair, in terms of new construction? And the general answer is, well, as much as I can, maybe a little more than last year. But, there was not an overwhelming awareness of, hey, I have to do, 10 new units on our maintenance portfolio every quarter. So we talk about SMART goals. SMART's an acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time specific. So for example, if you're a sales manager, you're a business leader, and you have a sales team, you might say you have 4 people on your sales team, and you have 1,000 units of maintenance on your portfolio, and you want to grow 4%. You're going to get some cancellations, so you better grow 10%. So you want to add 100 units, to your base. So you might say, okay, to each of your whatever, 2 service salespeople, you have to add 50 units to our service portfolio in 2022. But that's specific, 50 units to the service portfolio. It's measurable. Either you get it or you don't. I think it's attainable. If you have 1,000 units, you certainly should be able to add 100. It's relevant. It's important to the business, and it's time specific. We're going to do it in 2022. So that'd be a specific, that'd be an example of a SMART goal. Another SMART goal, might be something to the effect of, we need to book, hey, salesman A or saleswoman B, we want you to book $4 million in modernization projects, 20% gross margin in fiscal year 2022. Or maybe you want to have the goal even more specific. We want you to do $1 million a quarter. Once again, it's a SMART goal and it meets the acronym. But don't stop there. Too many managers stop there. That's the budget, okay? Where you want to go next, and I don't have a slide for this, I'm just going to talk to it, is kind of the goals and objectives, the plan, the words behind the numbers. Like I said, I love numbers, but I like words even more. So how are you going to do that, okay? How are you going to grow 50 units to your maintenance portfolio? How are you going to get 4 million? And you want to drill that down pretty specifically, in my opinion. So you say, okay, identify the top 10 biggest clients in your area, okay? Then you would have specific goals, objective strategies. Then you need to meet with each of your top 10 customers once a quarter to talk about their account and to talk about what they have under their portfolio that we don't have today that we have an opportunity to bid on in order to get that 50 unit service portfolio gain that was your SMART goal. Or, okay, elevator consultants drive a lot of the mod businesses, we all know. Do you know everybody? No, I don't know. I don't know the guys at Lurch Bates, or I don't know the consultants at HKA, or whoever it is we're dealing with. So you may have a subset of your SMART goal would be a specific objective, something that you can do or your salesperson can do on a regular basis that's going to help them achieve that goal. You just give them the goal and you monitor them quarterly or monthly or annually, and they don't make it, you're lost. Okay, so you need to make sure we set the strategies and the objectives of what it is they're going to do to achieve those SMART goals. To me, that's very, very important. So whether it's reviewing your existing accounts, meeting new people, making at least 4 customer visits a month, you set those for your sales team and actually with your sales team. So that, to me, that's accountability and results, and not just pointing a finger at somebody and say, do this, sell $4 million worth of mod, but it's, I'm going to help you develop a plan to do it. And, the reason that you're a business unit leader or you're a sales manager, a sales VP, is hopefully because you've done it before in the elevator business or even in another business. In order to have people that you can look in the eye to go out and attain these SMART goals and meet and exceed them, you've got to recruit and retain a great sales force. And there's a lot to do here, all right? Let's talk about recruitment a little. My opinion, go for A players, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean the best salesperson at Otis if you're not at Otis, and it doesn't necessarily mean the best plant salesperson at Kencor if you're not at Kencor. It means somebody that's successful, that's driven, that has a proven track record, and pay them to perform. I think you're better off recruiting A players, and then that's going to be one batch of your people, and then go out and get some trainees, get some people with 1, 2, 3 years of sales experience, not even elevators, maybe some technical school grads, high school grads, college grads, whatever you think is best, and become A players. There's something known in sales management as the curse of the B player. C players you're going to get rid of. B players, you hope they become A's. Too often they don't. So we want to go after A players. And then, so how do you identify an A player? Let's say you're posting for a job, you're looking for a senior salesperson. So you want somebody with experience, you're willing to pay a little bit. And so just like the SMART goal, you're going to write down with your salesman, write down and basically create a scorecard as to what you expect from this person. All right. Don't share it with them. This is internal. Create a scorecard, what you expect from this person. And it could be kind of specific. They got to sell $4 million in mod. They got to sell 100 units. But also, what are the attributes? They have to be, a certain type of person, whether it's a degree, whether it's certain experience, and have that scorecard. It's just like, I watched a TV show on Netflix. It was like jury selection. So have like a big piece of paper and little sticky tabs that you can fit. Okay, this guy, he fits 4 or 5 of these open boxes on my scorecard. And so, if somebody, you just like the person, or, they really, really have a great gift of gab or whatever, but in reality, they don't have a technical background, or they have not, been the #1 salesperson in their prior company, they're probably not going to be an A player for you. So define in your mind what that A player is and keep track of everybody you interview, and try to make it, once again, go to the numbers, make it analytical. It is personal, it's personality. You want to have a good rapport with the people you interview. But, let's try to get the best people. And then the old saying on the bottom of my screen here, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. Now we're going to retention. Okay. And I think if you tell people what's expected of them, right? Hold them accountable, talk to them regularly, you're going to retain people. And as John talked about in the introduction, if you have a company that creates an environment, a culture towards growth, a culture towards taking care of people, you will recruit and retain the best sales force. And more than anything, that's probably as big a ticket to success than anything any of us are going to probably talk about today. It's the people that make us special. Data, once again, kind of a number guy. I'm not as good of a systems guy as some of my colleagues on the phone, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about how we manage data here in the 21st century. I started with a day timer, then a 9-column pad, and then a computer and Excel. Now we have really slick CRM systems in most of our companies. But at the end of the day, information's power. Use your sales contact data, the history that you have with your customers. Keep good records, keep good follow-up, and I'm going to defer to my colleagues on the panel to talk about data in detail, but it's important. Metrics. Okay, once again, back to my comfort zone. Now we have the SMART goals, right? So we have to develop KPIs, key position indicators, as to how we're doing. So here we have the person I talked about. They have to sell 50 units here in 2022. So they ought to be doing 4 or 5 a month. Let's look at that weekly, bi-weekly, whenever we have sales meetings. And like I talked about the internal scorecard, and I'm going to give John Dodds 100% credit for this because he developed one of at Kencor anyways, I don't know who on John's team developed it, but Kencor had a great scorecard. They took their budget, right? They broke it down into what everyone has to do. Salesperson A had to bring in 10 units a quarter or 3 units a month, whatever it is, and so much mod, so much repair. Salesperson B might have been a construction salesperson, and he or she had to bring in $250,000 of hydro new construction packages, per month, and it was very, very granular. And I love it. So, and you can do it on Excel spreadsheet, which is what John Dodds and his team developed. And we're now rolling that out to all of our AEG businesses. And I would encourage everybody on this call to roll out some kind of a scorecard as to what each person in your sales team, especially if you're a multi-branch or multi-business unit company like we are, and a lot of the independents are going that way. We see a lot of our competitors, not just the Otis and the Kone and the Schindler, but we see a lot of our strong independent local competitors, whether it's a Chicago company or a New York company, really starting to expand to new geographies. So all of a sudden you're creating this somehow branch network, and all the more reason to have metrics. Now, unlike the scorecard for hiring, this score, which is internal, this is external. So everybody should be seeing their scorecard. Everybody should see the results. And when you have your sales meeting, I think it's really important, and I'm encouraging this in our organization, to put that scorecard up on the screen with your whole sales team. It creates a little competition. Somebody's going to be a little ahead of their goal for the month, and someone's going to be a little behind. No big deal, right? If you have a problem with one employee that's consistently way behind, you talk about that one-on-one, of course. But in the group setting, and then have each person do the research to fill out the scorecard. It's too easy, just give it to the accounting department and say, hey, fill the scorecard out. And even if you know the numbers yourself, you know that salesperson A, sold a nice 8-unit job. Doesn't matter. Make them comfortable looking up the numbers, presenting their numbers. And too many sales meetings I've been to, the sales manager or the business unit manager, they do all the talking, and the salespeople listen and they pound the table a little bit. We have to sell more, or they high five and they ring the bell. Hey, we sold a lot. But the best sales meetings are when people like myself and my co-panelists and John Dodds and Sean Madden, the best sales meetings are the ones where we shut up and let the salespeople talk. Let them present why they're ahead, why they're behind, begin to share those best practices. I think that creates a great team, creates a little competition, which I think is healthy in business. It also creates teamwork. It also creates sharing of good ideas. It flushes out some bad ideas, which is fine. So the person that's behind, he may keep saying, well, I keep knocking on this door and I can't get past the lady in the front door. I email, I call, I text, so different people want to be communicated with differently, and we can exchange those ideas amongst each other. So, I like the idea of salespeople presenting their own results on a very, very regular basis. Commissions, incentives, and contests. As I said, compensate well. Numbers, money's a number, right? You know, how much did you get paid last month, last year, last quarter? You know, that's once again, that's a number. Use the numbers to drive behaviors. I like commission plans. We have some AG companies that are on a straight salary and some kind of discretionary bonus. A lot of these companies that we run are former family-owned companies, and you know, where, you know, they're making a lot of money, and if they made $10 million this year and they make $9.5 million next year and 10.2 the year after, they're happy. You know, if you own your own company, you're making $10 million a year. That's a great thing. You know, we'd all be happy doing that. But most of us, a lot of us are in kind of this corporate environment now where, you know, we have investors, we have stakeholders. We need to grow that top line year over year, pick a number, 10%. Need to grow the bottom line year over year, pick a number, 12%. And we have to develop, in my opinion, commissions, incentives, sometimes even contests to have a little bit of fun. That's the last line on the slide, have some fun. Contest could be, you know, whoever gets the most meetings with somebody that hasn't done business with us in 5 years, you know, gets an iPad, a Starbucks gift card, a nice weekend out of town at the resort, you know, for them and their significant other. But, you know, figure out what you want to accomplish. Once again, go back to your goals. You're going to have your company goals. You're going to drill down SMART goals for all your people. What is it we need to do to drive the behavior so these people go out and meet and exceed those goals? You know, maybe, you know, one of the things I'm thinking about is one of the best ways to grow your business, any business, whether you're selling cars, elevator service contracts, you know, TVs, computers, referrals. You know, you always get a survey after you're on the phone with United Airlines or you're on the phone with Verizon or someone like that. And they always ask you, would you recommend us to a friend or a relative? Okay. I mean, that is the highest compliment that any salesperson can get, is a referral. An unsolicited referral is the highest compliment. If you ask for the referral and you get one, that's probably the second highest compliment. So, you know, and I'm thinking of maybe a contest, whoever gets the most referrals, you know, gets whatever, you know, weekend getaway, a gift certificate to the new 5-star restaurant in town to go out to dinner on Saturday, you know, something they can do in their free time, because to me, most people value their free time, you know, more than a big company event. Coming home, feedback. You know, once again, you know, I've talked about, you know, focusing on results, right? Knowing the numbers, driving behavior, driving the numbers through behavior, setting goals, hiring the right people, tracking the scorecard, tracking these results. Give feedback regularly. I think too many of us wait for an email from the HR manager, and especially if we're in a bigger company and the HR manager says, oh, it's time to do your performance reviews. You know, hey, we have to decide if we're going to give people pay raises. So do the performance review. And if they're a 4 to a 5, they get a 3% raise. And if they're a 3 to a 4, they get a 2% raise. And anyone on the call that's worked for a big corporation has had to either do this or has been on the receiving end, you know, of a performance review. And that's great. It's company compliance. You have to do performance reviews. But if you have to wait for the HR department to tell you it's time to talk to one of your people, one of the people on your sales team, then you failed. All right, and that should be reflected in your review. Feedback should be given informally, consistently, often. Somebody sells a nice job. Hey, it's really, really good. Somebody's missing their numbers. You're having your weekly or your every other week sales meetings and they're trailing behind, and say, hey, let's go grab a coffee after the meeting. Find out what's going on, to just say, you know, what's happening here. Talk to your people. I think that a lot of us get busy being busy, you know, I don't care if you're the sales manager or the VP of the company, the president of the company, the owner of the company. I know you're very, very busy with your own day job, because we all wear a lot of hats in the elevator business. But giving feedback to the sales force, not when you have to, but just doing it, you know, so that, you know, not at a review, everybody's nervous. You know, do it over coffee, do it after the sales meeting, do it when they walk in the morning, they're walking by your door. Hey, salesperson A, hey, come on in, have a cup of coffee. How was your weekend? You know, let's talk about what you're going to do this week. You know, we'll talk about what you did last week. You know, I didn't see a lot of you last week, you know, whatever it is. So I think giving that feedback on a regular basis is very, very important. You have to remember, you know, HR function, they do a lot, but they do not drive results, okay? Managers, business people, operations people, salespeople drive results. And that's what we're all talking about here, driving results by talking to your people all the time. So that's kind of the gist of my presentation. In summary, know the numbers, drive behaviors through the numbers, get good people, keep score of how they're doing, create these scorecards, have the people self-explore their own scorecard so they know their numbers, they know where to find them in the system. Don't let the accountants do it yourself. You know, have the salespeople do it themselves, present their numbers, have discussions on why their numbers are up, why their numbers are down, create a little bit of competition, create a team, and give feedback to everyone. Give the general feedback in group settings, and if there's anything that's maybe critical or a need for improvement, of course, that's what you want to do in a one-on-one setting. You know, you'd never ever want to embarrass anybody. You don't want to call anyone on the carpet. A little good, healthy competition is fine. It's like, you know, we all played Little League. There was a batting average. Coach put batting averages. Mine was always the lowest. You know, well, it made me take a little extra batting practice so I could get off the bottom of the list. You know, fortunately, I always had the least errors, so, you know, there was an offset. But it's okay to post people's results. It's not okay to embarrass them. So that is the presentation that I have, and I look forward to hearing if there's any questions. Put them in the chat room. We can address them now or later, or comments even, certainly well taken. And I will turn it back over to John when I figure out how to stop sharing my screen here.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it, and then thanks for that presentation. Yeah, just a reminder to the group. Any questions for Eric? Put them in the Q&A window, and we'll try to circle back to them as we can as time allows. Eric, before I let you go, I guess a comment and a question. First comment: thanks for the unsolicited pat on the back on kind of how we were doing things at Kencor. I appreciate that, but just some information for the group that might be helpful. Where I was first introduced to some of what you were just referring to there, Eric, kind of managing by the numbers, was through a Vantage presentation, speaker and author by the name of Jack Daly. So just a piece of information to the group. Anybody that's interested in looking him up, he's got several books available. You can find them on Amazon. But more specifically, to follow up on your points, Eric, my question, to bring, I guess, all of your points together, you know, that really falls kind of into alignment with, I guess, what you would probably expect from a sales manager. So what are you looking for in a great sales manager?
Okay, that's an excellent question. Yeah, so once again, you know, if I was hiring for a sales manager, I would once again create my own internal scorecard. What I would be looking for is, in our business anyways, is somebody that has sold something, has a track record for success. A lot of people might tell you, well, being a great manager, being a great salesperson, two different things. And they are 100%, but it does help. It is 100% true that they are two different skill sets, but it helps that somebody has that basic experience and they've experienced that rejection that salespeople experience every day. So I would say somebody, they don't have to necessarily be the best salesperson, but once again, it has to be someone that's fair, someone that is analytical, someone that can sit with these people and set up those goals. And more important, I mean, to me, I have one word to be a successful sales manager, anything manager, is empathy. You know, you have to have, if you're you know what, if you're not a nice person, or you think that you're great and these other people aren't living up to your expectations, you're going to fail as a sales manager. Your people are going to fail. And like one of my slides says, people don't quit companies, they quit bosses. I think if you have empathy, you know, which is, we all know what empathy is, you really care about these people and you try to understand what they're experiencing when they're out there selling. whether you could do it or not. I never considered myself a great salesperson, but I considered myself a very analytical person, a very organized person, and I do consider myself someone that has empathy. And if you can understand how your people are feeling when they come in the office, when they go to work, more than anything, that's going to make you successful. So I would say that's hard to do in an interview. You have to ask a few probative, and there's some interviewing, that'll be a whole nother NAEC webinar, is how to interview people, right? But we can do that. But I think you would ask some of these behavioral, which I typically don't like, behavioral-based questions. You know, tell me about a time you solved a conflict with people at work. And you want to try to get a feel for, do these people behave with empathy, or do they just, you know, trying to just drive success, drive behavior? You know, you just get a bigger stick and keep beating them on the back, because you'll just send them to another company. So I look for people that have some sales experience, that are analytical, organized, and do have empathy for others.
Great. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate your candor there, and thanks for your time. At this time, I'm going to move on to the next panelist. Our next panelist is Sandy Barr. Sandy is the corporate sales manager for Delaware Elevator, where he manages all Delaware Elevator's geographical sales territories, as well as manufacturing division sales. His work includes modernizing the sales processes and developing sales enablement, which is the strategic use of people, processes, and technology to improve sales productivity and increase revenue. Sandy has a long career in manufacturing, engineering, and management, business development, and sales management with companies that include Filtronic PLC, the Siesta Group, Philips Healthcare, and IBM. Sandy also recently completed NAEC's esteemed Vertical Transportation Management Program, otherwise known as the VTMP. Sandy, thanks for joining us, and I will turn it over to you.
John, thank you, and I thoroughly appreciate the opportunity to share some of my experiences with the panelists and the larger congregation of folks that have joined us online. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Trip for pulling this together, yourself, John, and Sean for moderating us through the practice session. Thoroughly appreciated the input there, and just the experience of working alongside Eric and Freddy as we started pulling this together. Maybe it would benefit most people if on the recording afterwards we had some subtitles here at the bottom of the screen so that they could actually understand what I'm saying. Again, Eric, thank you for your presentation. I think it's always great for folks that have been around in sales and business development for a long time to hear some of those methodologies, the empathy, the focus on the goals, use data, and breed success amongst your sales teams, and additionally with that empathetical view that we should always be thinking ahead as to how people are really feeling when they come in the office, or they're maybe not going through a very good time with sales, or you see in the data some trends that may lead you down another path. So always great to hear those methodologies and be reminded of the things that we were educated in as part of our career. Maybe it was at the beginning, maybe it was in the middle, but at the end of the day, things that really help us become more successful and more focused on what we do. So as John alluded there, I have a relatively comprehensive background in sales and business development outside of the elevator industry. And over the last 3 years, I've thoroughly enjoyed being part of this family, still family-run company after 75 years here at Delaware Elevator. So thoroughly enjoyed the introduction to the company, learning new technologies. And I think if you look down my resume, you'd see that every time I change job, I've pretty much changed career path and changed industry. So really enjoy it. one of the things about the companies that I had previously been with, and when people say, how do you make that transition into other industries? Well, one of the things that you would look at the companies that I'd been with, you would see that all of them were highly process driven and process orientated organizations. And so coming to Delaware and coming to maybe another couple of the companies I've been with and consulted for, there was always that push for me to find out where are those data points, where are the things we can measure, where are the things that are important to the output of the organization, and how do we make this more efficient and more pleasurable an environment to work in. So those are all the sort of questions I like to ask as part of also coming from a process-orientated career. I'd like to share with everybody just a couple of the biggest written influences that I have in my career. W. Edwards Deming wrote a book back in the 50s called Out of the Crisis, a phenomenal book that drove the principles of management transformation and are focused away from the piece part towards the process and towards those data-driven results. Joseph Duran, whose approach to management of quality across the organization, whether it be in human resources or whether it be in the production environment. And also Philip Crosby, whose book Quality is Free is one of the most famous books that drives the thinking that quality is free, because if you do it right first time, you never need to go back and do it again. So measure twice, cut once. A couple of early lessons I learned in my career is that having been burnt many times, it was about meeting a prospective client. I learned to be thorough in my research of the client on the basis of being burned many times. So make sure that when you are engaging your clients, that you do your homework. You know the equipment they have, if you can. You know the background. Use LinkedIn, use social media. Find out more about your client before you get there. Find out from your own company systems what information is available on previous engagements. One of the things Eric alluded to was about listening. You know, gone are the days of running this chickens and just giving it the gift of the gab and being like a used car salesman. Those days are gone in sales, and they're never going to come back. So the emphasis of sales is to really listen to what your client has to say. Never speak over them. Sometimes listening is more important and more powerful than anything that you would have to say as part of that conversation. And the last one I have is never reply all. We've all done it, and there's many of us would never do it again. And again, before I get into talking more about technology, a couple of my favorite sayings, and this was really when I saw Eric's original script, I kind of thought, well, this is a good idea. So let me add a couple of my favorite sayings. If you can't measure it, you can never manage it, and whatever it may be. And so you will ruin an organization by perception and hearsay. But if you manage your results, you measure your results and manage your results, you can then watch the numbers and manage the behavior of your sales forces and of yourselves individually. 80% of problems in business are created and supported by management. And I think that the amount of time even the panelists have spent in management, we know that over the period, if we to look ourselves in the mirror, we probably created 80% of the problems that our people faced. And again, the last of my favorite sayings is never reply all. So again, great thanks to everybody for having us as part of this, and looking at the benefits of sales processes and being able to modernize and transform your sales processes to make you more enabled in the field to be able to meet those goals that you share at the start of every fiscal year. You meet and you say, okay, yeah, I think I can achieve that. But in reality, do we sometimes just agree to the goals at the time because, hey, we've got 12 months left to try and hit them? And do you think I think I can do it? And if I say I can do it now, then he's going to leave me alone for a little while. So using technology to try and get to a point in your sales processes that is a benefit to the organization is hugely important. And I'm going to focus in on the customer relationship management side and the technological advancement of CRM tools. But what I would say at the outset of that is that CRM is such a buzzword over the last 10 to 15 years that everyone sees that CRM should be part of their organization. I would say, and I warn people, having seen some of the results of badly implemented CRM and customer management processes, that if the benefits are only there for you as managers, then I would not implement CRM at all. If the benefits are not there to enable the sales force to become successful and more effective in the field, then you really want to rethink your overall strategy around what you would see as a CRM or type tool. So ask your teams what they need. Ask your sales reps what they need. Ask your service management what they need, and come up with a solution that fits your business. Because CRM is great. It is a great tool for being able to mine through what your customers have, what you believe you can supply your customer. It's a great tool for monitoring your sales revenue and your goals and your objectives. But at the very end of the day, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Your companies do things well, and aligning the CRM with the things that your company does well is hugely important to any implementation of such a workplace transformation tool. So I've on many occasions asked myself, how do I unleash the true power of customer relationship management? And I think you've got to ask yourself the question, why CRM right out of the gate? And so why will this benefit my business? What is it going to do that's going to change the way we're going? If we're happy as in the current revenue stream that we have, then what do I need to do to make any difference to that? Well, I mean, I think again, it's about everyone's objectives. It's about the progress that each one of your organizations want to make over time. And sure enough, I believe that as technology continues to grow, if your whole objective is to move forward and to grow as a business, then sometimes it is the best alternative to look at a technological tool. So my belief is that, and I've known this through proof, that customer relationship management programs drive stronger relationships. And they drive stronger relationships with your customers, with your internal clients and your internal suppliers, your external suppliers, and ultimately the team as a whole. So that being said, it creates that next level of customer intelligence. Where did it start? It always starts with a sale. It starts with that lead that becomes qualified. The qualification of that lead then becomes part of our account system. And then subsequently, you have all these processes that in some businesses are highly mismanaged. And so being able to have such a technical tool which can drive the initial contact with the client through until it becomes an account, and then an account that continually sustains itself with you. It gives you a better chance of being able to wholly focus in on the things that are important, the equipment that the client has, the types of contract that they have, the number of repairs that they have on the board, the age of their equipment, the potential for a modernization. All those types of decisions can easily be found in an enablement management tool like CRM. One of the other things I find is a real advantage to implementing CRM is departmental transparency. You know, but here in sales, I don't want to hide what I'm doing. So we will go out and we will generate leads, we will qualify opportunities, we will develop those opportunities into sales, and then we have all this intelligence that we've built up about the customer. And I would like our construction teams, our modernization teams, our service teams to fully be engaged in that information, so that there's never any information gaps coming from the sale. It is it's huge in terms of being able to make a process that something just keeps popping up on my screen in front of me. I don't really understand what it is, but I mean, it's really hugely important that departmental handoff can be done with a good amount of solid management data and sales data. And that leads us into some of the things that Eric talked about with those KPIs and the measurement tools. When you have solid data and you are developing those sales in the opportunity at the opportunity level, you ultimately develop the sales engagement into what the business objectives are. And those business objectives are clearly what that person would sell in a period of time, how many units that they would extract from a competitor, and continually sort of developing those through time. The key performance indicators, our sales cycles, our objectives can all be managed by a CRM type tool. So those are the kind of the basics, but what I'd say is that think about how you generate your leads, how you manage your contacts, how you qualify your opportunities. And again, I mean, we are creating intelligence here about our clients, and that helps us more fully make decisions by fact rather than hearsay and perception. So just moving on, implementing a CRM is never always easy, and it's never always easy in some of the sizes of the companies that you may be working with, that I may be involved in, when there may be indeed limited resources, whether those resources are human or whether they are financial. There are always issues and challenges and things that can go wrong, and what you really need to do in the outset of any CRM implementation is pick your battles. Your battles are ones which have to be picked strategically. Sales, for instance, is my battle. Resistance might be one of those battles as well, and I'm sure a few of you have run into resistance when it comes to developing the criteria for change and moving your organizations forward. The second thing I'd say is choose your platforms wisely. Choose platforms that, with limited human or financial resources, you may be able to do things on your own, that you don't have to rely on huge IT expertise, or like, for instance, some of the more common CRM type tools where it costs a fortune every time you want to make a change. Think of the future where you want your customer relationship management tools to go. Make sure you involve all of your people. Make sure that you get their opinion into what you're trying to achieve and in that battle. And so remembering that none of us win alone. And one of the things I've learned throughout my sales career is that I've had to pull on exchange of information and experience from multiple facets of companies to be able to get to the point where I became successful. So as a sales manager, we must involve our people and keep them engaged in what we're doing. So again, make the CRM fit what you're doing now, because again, not all your processes right now are running like square wheels. There are some of your business processes right now are running really well. So make the CRM fit the things that you're doing really well, and be able to introduce automation and tools that make doing what you're doing really well easier. Don't just consider the upfront cost. The upfront costs can be relatively reasonable for smaller organizations, but somewhere down the line you find out that any change patterns that you may want to do, reports that you may need written, some of those things cost a lot of money and can be financially challenging after the case of an implementation. So make sure that your choice there is a good one, a solid one, and well considered, because your CRM engagement will increase over time. And as it increases over time, the number of users will increase, and that user interface engagement will increase. So be careful about that choice. It is one that can really trip you later when you discover that, oh, when you get to 20 users, the price may come down, but whenever you need a report written or you need something else changed in the database structure, it's going to cost you $30,000. And so some of those are the things that you really have to highly consider. And again, you know, limited human and financial resources, or sorry, limited IT and human resources can also be that challenge. Not everything that you want to get done will get done in the time frame that you want it done in. And in a lot of people's minds is that when we ask for something of technology, it can happen almost immediately. And because technology in its very nature is such a great solution, but sometimes those solutions are well worth the wait, and they don't always happen quickly. So when you have limited resources, make changes less often and make them count. Because if you make them count, you may make less changes, but you'll make changes which are more attuned to where your business is going. Immediate automation where is possible. Another great point on CRM. Show those time savings and efficiency gains. If you can automate a process, like for instance, a contract or a proposal or your commission structure, or something which shows your folks early that you can make automation really work for them, and it saves them time, it saves them energy, gives them some of that time back, and really puts the underline underneath the reason why we are looking to go down the lines of technological advancements in CRM. Second last point on this is track your progress and the effectiveness of your implementation. Continually sit back and look at what you've achieved, look at how effective it's been, ask yourself the questions what you can do better, ask yourself the questions on what we're going to do in the future. Have a really robust project plan that you can check the milestones on and see where you are. And sometimes it doesn't matter if you're as far through the project as you want to be, but as long as you've achieved each one of those milestone plans at a very high degree of conformity. So again, track your changes as well, track any changes in the effectiveness of those, because you'll find that when you implement CRM, you're going to get questions from all over the organization. You're going to have people asking you to do this, and oh, can you get this type of data? Can you do this? So sometimes those requests involve changes, depending on who's asking for them, of course. But always take a look at those changes and the effectiveness of them, because ultimately you want to make sure, again, that if you're making changes and you are a smaller organization, that those changes have been made to count. And again, never stop improving. Listen to what your folks have got to say, listen to your people, have that empathy. We're all striving towards financial goals, physical goals, personal goals, all those types of things that are valuable both in our work life and our personal life. So listen to what your folks have got to say. They have extremely valid points. Some of them may actually have experience in other organizations of CRM and other workplace transformation type tools, mobile working and so forth. So again, never stop that improvement, never stop the desire or the drive to continually improve your business systems. But the most important feature in that is build your business systems for your people. Don't build them just for yourselves as managers. And in doing that, continue listening to both your people and your customers. And that's where success can be bred. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate that. You had me chuckling a few times there during your presentation. A few of these points kind of hit home. Just a reminder for those in our audience, because I'm in an environment where we're oftentimes, reminded that not everybody understands a lot of the acronyms, although I think most folks understand CRM to this point, but just to hit on it, customer relationship management, correct? That's kind of what we're talking about.
Yes,
next, I love a good reply all email. I mean, who doesn't, right? Like the just reply all email that never ends and never ends and never ends. So I love that. I wish we, as a whole, as a society, we took your advice on that one.
Or the one that's ever
alls.
been sent.
Yeah, okay, me too, and it just goes on forever and ever. But to ask you a question regarding your presentation there. So I'm personally, I'm probably 18 to 20 months into a CRM implementation, and there are, using your words, there are certainly forms of resistance that come up, right? So, sir, for any folks in our audience, or maybe anybody who might be watching the recording later on that's considering implementing a CRM platform, and there are several which maybe we'll talk about at the end if we have time. In your opinion, how would you describe some of those types of resistance to the implementation of a CRM platform?
So I think there's a number of different ways of answering that question, John. And I think, firstly, any change to the norm upsets any one of us. If you have your own weekend habits, evening habits, as soon as something breaks into that schedule of your own values or of your own work content, then sometimes that in itself just breeds resistance. It's like, do we need it? Why do we need this? We haven't needed it for 35 years. Why do we need it now? And so I think there's just the human nature, which I would encourage folks that when you do run into that type of resistance, please try and treat it with the highest amount of respect, because at the end of the day, you are breaking into someone's norm. And so being able to implement customer relationship management technologies and with a level of empathy is hugely important. I think you also run into the resistance, John, of the idea it wasn't my idea. And I've seen that now in a couple of companies that I've been with. And just to be honest with you, usually those people come around at some point when they start to see the value and the efficiency gains. I just think that generally that resistance is a human type facet rather than usually it's never business based. It's usually we're breaking into someone's space,
Yeah, great. Thank you for that, Sandy. Appreciate you sharing your information and taking the time to join us today. I'm going to now move over to our third presenter, Freddy Flores. Freddy is the Regional Sales Manager for the Midwest region of Vantage Elevation. In this role, he works to improve Vantage's market position for all its companies, GAL, Hollister Whitney, Elevator Controls, Curion, Bormax, and Vertical Dimensions, As a 25-year veteran of the elevator industry, Freddy has held numerous positions, including president, vice president, territory manager, business development manager, national sales manager, and sales manager. In his varied positions, Freddy has overseen strategic business planning, market expansion, training and development, contract negotiations, as well as new business development. Freddy, thank you for joining us, and I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much, John, for that nice introduction. I greatly appreciate it. And just wanted to touch base in regards to managing sales teams more from I think I look at managing from all of my learned lessons, working from different companies, and I think my presentation focuses more on the human factor of actually managing sales teams. I think my colleagues have talked about KPIs, CRMs. Those are all great. And I want to touch base more on actually managing your sales team more from a humanistic factor. I'm going to talk about sales strategy. I'm going to talk about knowing your team. I'm going to talk about teaching and mentoring, listening to your team, and customer meetings. So the first thing I want to talk to you about today is sales strategy needs to be transparent. I think a lot of times I've been with a few managers who actually don't share their sales strategy with their teams. So I think your team needs to know and understands the strategy and the strategy of the company, right? And also as well as your strategy and how you're planning to go there and get there, right? So a lot of times we don't share, and we're not sharing how we plan to get there. A lot of times we just give our sales teams, here's a number, you got to do it. But you're not thinking, you're not asking for their feedback, and then you're not also giving them your feedback on how you're going to get to that strategy and how you're going to get there, right? I think the main thing too is, how are you being measured and how they're being measured? A lot of teams don't understand that, sometimes you're asking for a report because somebody else is asking you for a report. I've had numerous sales reps that have said, hey, can I get a report on this? And they come back to me and say, why do you need that? Well, I'm not asking you just for fun. I'm asking you because my boss needs this report and we're going to use it for A, B, and C. So I think understanding how you're being measured and also understanding how they're being measured, I think is important to share those perspectives. Where are you coming from? Why are you doing the things you're doing? Why are you gearing them, for example, for more repair or open order this month? Maybe because you're a little light, or why are you focusing more on mod this month, right? So I think they need to understand where you're coming from in regards to that. Knowing your team, I think that's very important. You need to understand how your team works. Each person is an individual part of your team, and they make a whole. So I think you need to understand their weaknesses and the strengths. What are they good at? What are they not good at? They may be good at repair or open order, or they may be good at mod. And then you could partner it up, right? If you have a sales rep that's actually good at open order, but not that great in mod, partnering up with a sales rep that's actually great at mod that can assist them in actually selling some mod and closing those mods, right? Show them that you care. I think it's very important that you treat your sales team how you want to be treated. Show them that you care about them. Be involved. I think it's a huge thing for me is to be involved with your team, know what's going on in their lives. I think a lot of us, especially during the times that we've been living in, a lot of us are carrying different things on our shoulders and our minds. So, show them that you care, spend time with them. Maybe they missed their number and didn't do something this month because there's a lot of other stuff going on, right? So make sure you understand that what's happening in their lives. I think that focuses on things that may be going on and how they're performing in their job. Celebrate wins and learn from losses. I think it's great that we, a lot of times I think we celebrate wins, but we don't learn from losses, right? What happened with this loss? What can we do different next time? Teaching them to go back to their customer and say, okay, why did we lose this job? What can I do different? So learning from that, and how do we apply it to the next job, right? How are we applying what happened at that job, why we lost it, and also in the wins, right? Why did we win that job? Was it just because our price was lower, or was it because we have a better team that can do this job because we have better people around us? Why did we win this job? I think that's very important. And make sure they're in the right job. I think as a company grows, people tend to grow their positions, right? So maybe this is time to have now selling just maintenance. Now that he may be selling mod, right? How is he on that right job? Is that right job right for him? Other people may not like to be doing one aspect of one job. Are they good at the other aspects? So I think it's important to know if they're in the right fit for that job. I think a lot of times Your people are in areas where they're not happy in doing what they're doing, but they could be great at mod, or they could be great at something else. So I think it's very important that you know your team. And we talked about communication and listening. I think that's definitely a huge factor on that. You know, teach and mentor. I think it's very important that we educate and train your team to meet their goals. To me, I always look at people that have worked for me, that if they fail, I fail, right? Am I doing everything in my behalf to make sure that they succeed? Am I training them? Am I helping them? Am I putting the right mentors with them? Am I spending time with them? I always look at that before I ever have a bad talk with somebody or let somebody go. I always look at myself in the mirror and say, okay, what could have done differently, or did I do everything I could have done for this person to succeed? And I always make sure that I focus on that. And what works and what doesn't work based on your experience, right? As experience as a sales manager, I may not have all the experience, but I want to look and learn from myself and what's worked when I was doing that job that person is doing, what's worked for me, and what didn't work for me. So I want to make sure that we understand that. Be a partner. I think a lot of times you want to make sure that they know that you have their back. They know that they can trust you. I think as a sales manager, you want to make sure your team is able to say, you know what, I trust my boss. I know that he has my back no matter what. I know that if something happens, that he's going to be there. He's going to back me up, whether it was something good or bad, but he will have my back. And let them make mistakes. I always tell the people that I work for me is like, look, you're making a mistake is okay. Learn from it. As long as it doesn't cost us that much money, you know, we're okay. But we learn from it. Let's see what we can do different. And let's go back and actually learn from that mistake. What can we do differently next time? What can we do better so this won't happen again? So I think it's okay to let people make mistakes, and it's okay to learn from those mistakes. So I think is very important that we do that with our customers, and also with our team, sales team. So the other thing that we talked about, I think Sandy and also Eric spoke about this, about listening to your team. I think it's very important that we ask for feedback and have open communications. A lot of times we tend to actually have our team be scared of us and they don't want to give us feedback. I think we need to make sure that they understand that it's okay to provide feedback, good or bad, right? It's okay to ask them, what did I do right? What am I doing right as a boss? What am I doing wrong as a boss? What can I do better? How can I help you be better? So ask for their feedback, give them feedback on what they need, and have open communication lines, whatever it may be. I think is important for us to have that and be able to talk about that and do that. One of my favorite things is customer meetings. I think we don't spend time as sales managers focusing with our team on how to manage meetings, right? How to drive meetings. I think you should be the driver of the meetings, not let the customer call the meetings, but you drive those meetings. When you meet with them, talk about the issues that are important to you. First, talk about the issues that are important to them, but don't leave without talking about the issues that are important to you and your team. Talk about AR. I think as sales reps, we don't want to talk about money that they owe us, right? But being an owner of a previous company, I understand that AR is critical, right? If we don't have working capital, if we don't have money coming in, we can't pay our bills. So, before you go, teach your sales team that before they go talk to a customer, is they review the AR, right? What do they owe us? Why they owe us this? Any open proposals that they have, I've submitted this bid to you 6 months ago. Are we doing anything? Is this open? Is this closed? What are we doing with that? So I think it's important to talk about the issues and talk about, the financial issues, right? Make sure that the red flags from a customer, right? If they're not paying their bills, what's going to go on with this customer? Do you want to do any more repairs for this customers? If they're going to take you, 120 days to pay, they don't want to give you a down payment. I think it's important to know those customers and know what's going on with them and how can you help them build that. So it's very important, I think, to teach our sales teams about managing their customer meetings and actually driving those meetings. I think a lot of times we don't do meeting minutes. I think you don't have to do it for every meeting, but I think it's important to do meeting minutes because this way you capture what you think you heard and what you hope the customer heard, right? So you give the customer an opportunity to say, no, that's not correct. And you hope you make commitments, right? So if they said, hey, I'm going to sign this in 30 days, or I'm going to pay you guys in 60 days on this invoice. If you capture that on your meeting minutes, it's in writing, per our conversation, per our meeting, you said X, Y, and Z. So this is what I'm expecting. So they have an opportunity to review those and actually get back to you with those any issues or any questions that they may have. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about, guys, was about the sales managers, sales team, and customers. I think we're all intertwined. I think we're all part of the same team. And I think you need to see your customers as an extension of your sales force. When I actually had my own company and I was the only sales rep just starting, my customers were my channels of distributions, right? I expected them to go out there and sell for me. I expected them to say, hey, when somebody needs a sales actual elevator company, if they were thinking of Freddy, right? Who else would they think of? No, Freddy. Elevators, Freddy. My family, elevators, Freddy. So I want to make sure that my customers are an extension of my sales team, just like my sales team and all their customers should be. Two key things I think Eric talked about was, for me, is like, I think I tell my team this all the time, is that every member of the organization should view his or her job as a continuous selling effort. It doesn't stop when you sell. If you sell a project and it doesn't go right, they're not going to come back to you. So if you're putting a tank pumping unit together, you know that if you do this pumping unit right, they're going to come back and buy that pumping unit again, right? Repetitive business, right? And the work of satisfying the customer is never over. It's a continuous process. It's a continuous path that we got to lead on. So I think you need to make sure that you do that, right? That you follow those trends and that you follow up with those customers as well. And I always tell everybody that I work with, it's like we got KPIs, we got CRM, but always work with the end in mind. If your goal is to sell $10 million this year, how are you going to get there, right? Work for the 10 million backwards. I need, like Eric was talking about, okay, do I need to visit 10 customers this week? Do I need to send out 10 proposals? Start working with that end in mind, so you're working towards that goal. So I always work with the end in mind. So John, that's pretty much all I had. I wanted to just touch on those key points. I know we only have 10 more minutes, but I wanted to make sure, and I wanted to leave it open for any time that we may have for Q&A. So
yeah, no, appreciate that. And I do think one or two questions may have come in unanswered, or they may have been answered, but it might be worth circling back on. But before I get to that, just a quick question for you, because you have served, such a wide portfolio of companies, and you've, as I alluded to in your introduction, you've held a number of different roles throughout your career. What would you say are, maybe one, two, three, what have you, lessons that you've learned, from some of the best managers that you've worked either with or for throughout your career?
I think great question, John. I appreciate the question. I think for me is actually a manager that takes interest in me personally, not just in my career, both in my career and me personally, right? I think I always make it a point to make sure that I know everybody that's working for me, that I know their birthdays, right? I make sure I ask HR, hey, give me the people's birthdays. I always send them a birthday note, take them out to lunch or something. But I think it's important to know that their family aspect, right? Where are they coming from? What's their history? I think taking that personal interest in the people that work for you, I think is very important. Making them feel appreciated, making them feel that they can trust you. And I think knowing that the best managers I've had, I know that I can trust them. I know that they have my back. I don't even have to question it, because I know that if I make the wrong decision, they'll be there to help me and help me dig out of it rather than help me dig deeper into it. So.
And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, if you don't mind, just because we are kind of touching on the people aspect as it relates to your presentation. I'm sure many of us are, but I've always been a fan of good to great. Get the right people, then get the right people in the right seat before you figure out where to drive the bus. So how would you make sure that you have, a sales rep, at the right job or in the right job?
And I think Eric talked about this. I don't like behavioral-based questions, which I think they're good, but I think people can practice for them and have the right script for those questions. But I think is making sure that you just you have open communications with them. You ask them the right questions, making sure they follow the trend and what they've been doing. So if talk to some of their customers. I always like to talk to people and let's say, can I talk to a couple of your customers, a couple of your coworkers, to make sure that they're the right fit. Make sure you know what you're looking for in a salesperson. I think that's very important. And making sure that you're asking the right questions that are going to lead to that. Look at their background, look at their LinkedIn, look at their look at even their Facebook, right, to see what they're into, what they're doing, what are they doing, when they're not working. And I think you can see a lot of a person in regards to what's interesting to them. And I think, good to great is, and I think depending where you're at within your company, right? If it's a mature business, you want mature salespeople, right? If you're just starting your company, you may want people that are just hustlers that are going to be good at cold calling, people that are hitting doors. You don't want a lot of the experience, but you want people out there that are opening doors. So I think depending on the maturity of your company and where you're at, you're going to be looking for different people at different times.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm just kind of looking through the chat window, and I don't really believe we have any unanswered questions, but we did have one question that kind of came in, and Sandy, thanks for jumping in and answering that. But maybe I'll just open this question up a little more to the group. And the question was, do you find that there is a particular CRM that works well with our specific industry? Or maybe as a panel, we can just talk about some of the more popular, CRMs that are out there. And I'll open that up to anyone. Sandy, I know you jumped in and said you're working with Microsoft Dynamics, but yeah, I'll let the panel jump in on that.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick, John. This is Eric. And I want to go, it's almost a question to Sandy. I want to go, Sandy said something very important. If the CRM, whatever it is, Salesforce, Microsoft Dynamic, is just a tool for the manager or the boss to make pretty check charts and nice graphs and pie charts, and which is what CRM will often do, it doesn't help the salespeople. It isn't worth spending the money on it. So, and I love that, because I've seen people use Salesforce.com, for example, where the sales manager is just showing fancy reports to the president, but the salespeople are like, we're not getting anything out of it. So my question to Sandy is, what attributes of the CRM, and also it's a question to you too, John, because you said you've been piloting one for 18 months, what attributes of the CRM, regardless of the brand, are really geared towards salesperson effectiveness versus just pretty graphs and charts?
Yeah, well, I think Eric, I think the first answer to that is has to come from your sales reps. So if I had to do something for you today that would change your world, what would it be? And is that the point where I can make a maintenance contract available within moments for my client and be able to transmit that electronically to them within seconds, or even be able to create a printed item that's formalized through the company's CRM? Did that save me having to go back to my home office and maybe even forget about it till the next day? Is it when I submit my sales, why do I still need to do this commission report at the end of the month type of thing? Why shouldn't that be automated? And we've actually done a very good job of that here, is being able to take that type of burden away from my sales reps. We continue to look to new automation features, but I do believe that one of the most important things is taking things that are just a complete pain in the rear for your sales force, and being able to automate them and be quicker to market, quicker to your client. Those are the things that I think that are the key benefits. And if your CRM can help you achieve that and continue to evolve that level of automation and engagement with your clients, then those are the platforms that we should choose. Again, but within the constraints of the human and financial constraints that you may have.
And I think to add to that point, Sandy, I think it's important to know what you want to do with that CRM, right? So if you don't know what you want to do with that CRM, then don't get a CRM. I think you need to say, what is it that I want to do? What is it that I want to use it for? And then go back to that. I think CRMs are very important, especially if a salesperson leaves, right? And if you have all that customer data in there, that's very critical, because when people leave and you don't have any of that data, when was the last time they've talked to them, who's the contact at this building, it could hurt you. So I think that's a good part. That's what I would love to use CRM for, just customer data.
Absolutely.
And and I'm not a panelist, Eric, but since you asked me, I'm happy to chime in here. You know, my opinion, and I kind of agree with what the others are saying. You know, it has to add value. If it doesn't add value to the organization or to the sales representative, that's where you really are going to run into that resistance. In my experience, I think a lot of times it also depends on kind of like what current systems are you using. And a lot of the existing, you know, kind of dispatch systems and operations systems, accounting systems, they don't really have good sales and marketing modules. So at least that was my experience. So, you know, I've been using, the one I'm using and most familiar with is HubSpot. It's very sales and marketing oriented, and it really helps sales professionals keep track of kind of their customer outreach, where before it was just housed in in something like Outlook. And couldn't agree more with Sandy on the automation piece. When you can really start automating those functions that are detracting from your sales representative's time, you know, we want our sales reps to sell and just sell, sell, sell. We don't want them doing all these other administrative functions, right? So the more that we can free up time to do that, that's where we have seen a benefit. So out of respect for everybody's time, because we are wrapping here, we've only got about another minute and a half or so left. I'm going to go ahead and say that, you know, we've kind of come to the end of this town hall event. Certainly appreciate everyone that joined us today in our audience. Especially appreciate the panelists that have shared their time and expertise with us today. We will be holding more town hall events like this one later in 22. So please look out for those announcements soon. As a reminder, this recording will be posted shortly on the NAEC website for anyone that wants to go back and watch it later. And thanks to everyone for coming, and we'll see everybody soon.
Thank you.